I've never seen such an amazing man. While others are struggling to survive in the wild, he has already built himself an impressive forest cabin. The main structure of the cabin is made of hundreds of logs, all connected using mortise and tenon joints. Even a level 10 earthquake wouldn't scare him, because fear is useless. Previously, his stone house was too close to the river, causing him to suffer from rheumatism within a month. So he set out again to find a suitable place to settle down. Considering his rheumatism, he chose a location deep in the mountains this time. After 2 hours of searching, he finally found a centuries-old wild tree. The space on the trunk was not only spacious, but also surrounded by branches forming a natural enclosure, perfect for building a shelter. Defa immediately took out his treasured knife and started clearing the surrounding area. To have enough yard space, he flattened the weeds within a 5-meter radius and cleaned the entire ground. Now the yard looked much tidier. He then collected a batch of logs from the forest and began building a platform along the direction of the branches. As the saying goes, a tall building starts from the ground. Defa understood this principle from a young age, so he fixed each log with 20-centimeter nails to ensure they wouldn't separate in the middle of the night. To enhance living comfort, after building the foundation, Defa added a platform below it. This served as both the living room and a viewing deck for himself. Since the platform was more than 2 meters above the ground, climbing up and down every day was inconvenient. So Defa decided to build a staircase. He fixed 4 logs between the platform and the ground, forming a certain angle between them. He then added a few short logs in the middle to create steps, and finally filled the steps to make it convenient for him to go up and down the deck. Considering the foundation was still hollow, making it easy for wild animals to sneak in, Defa collected a batch of bamboo. After cutting them to the right size, he filled the gaps below the foundation, ensuring they were tightly packed to provide enough security. For the house itself, Defa used large logs for construction. He first cut the bark along the trunk and gently peeled it off with a small knife, removing the entire bark smoothly. If this were back in his hometown, Defa would at least be treated to a 4-course meal for such skillful peeling. He carried the wood back to the base and prepared to use mortise and tenon joints for construction to ensure the house was sturdy. He measured the wood, then cut and chiseled it accordingly. As the best carpenter in his family, Defa handled each piece of wood with precision, quickly achieving seamless connections. He then hammered wooden pegs into the joints to ensure they would stay together for a long time. The front of the house was where the door would be, so he chiseled out the middle of the logs to reserve the door frame before continuing to stack the walls. For stability, the logs of the upper and lower layers were connected with wooden pegs, forming a strong bond. When the walls reached a certain height, he reserved space for windows to improve lighting and ventilation. Considering his height was less than 2 meters, Defa only built the walls up to 1 meter before starting on the roof. He cut the tops of the logs into angles and chiseled them into tenon shapes, then cut cross-shaped grooves in another log. He assembled them on the walls to form a triangular ridge. He connected the ridges with another log in the middle, creating a double-slope frame. Defa then added more logs on both sides of the frame to serve as the roof's rafters. He covered the rafters with smaller logs, successfully capping his treehouse. For ventilation, he left gaps under the eaves, filling them with a few braces. After finishing, Defa found 2 sturdy logs, chiseled angled grooves on the sides, and wedged them between the cabin and the deck. He installed 2 planks in the grooves, making it much easier for him to enter and exit the house. With the main structure of the shelter completed, Defa could now prepare his dinner. But first he needed to build a stove for cooking. He threw stones onto the deck, laid a layer of wild mud as the base, and arranged the stones on top. He covered the stones with another layer of mud, creating a 10-centimeter high platform. He then arranged a circle of small stones on the platform, forming a small stove. While waiting for the mud to dry, Defa went back into the forest and found a long, thin plant. He dug up the soil around its roots, which were rich in starch, perfect for filling his stomach. But since he was still growing, a vegetarian diet wasn't enough. So he went to a nearby muddy area, dug up the top layer of soil, and kept exploring with his hands until he found many juvenile crabs. I thought Defa was just a skilled carpenter, but he was also an expert at catching crabs. He lit dry wood in the stove, waited until it turned into charcoal, and then placed the crabs directly on the coals to roast. After 30 minutes, he took them out and ate them one by one, quickly replenishing his energy. The next morning, he went back into the forest and used his family's traditional method to peel bark from trees. He brought the bark back to the base and laid it on the roof. Fresh bark has excellent waterproof and insulation properties, making it perfect for shelter. Defa then found a log, split it in half with an axe and hammer, creating 2 half-round logs. He continued splitting the half-round logs until he had a batch of planks of the same thickness. He smoothed the surface of the planks with his treasured knife, ensuring they were flat and smooth. Thanks to his superb carpentry skills, Defa handled each plank perfectly. He laid them on the ground, arranging them neatly to form a flat floor, making it much more comfortable to sleep on. Considering the deck was far from the ground, posing a risk of falling, Defa collected a batch of bamboo. He cut small bamboo tubes and stood them along the edge of the deck as support poles. He connected the poles with bamboo, creating a sturdy railing. For aesthetics, he laid a layer of bamboo strips in the middle of the railing, weaving them in a crisscross pattern, making it look beautiful. For the door, Defa used logs to make a door panel and attached it to the door frame, allowing it to open and close freely. After finishing, he used his excellent knife skills to cut bamboo strips into thin slices and wove them together with his skillful hands. As a dedicated wilderness enthusiast, Defa wanted his home to be cozy, so he made 2 beautiful lampshades. He placed candles inside and hung them on both sides of the shelter. Although the cabin's facilities were still simple, it was already a new home that could shield him from the wind and rain. As night fell, he went to a nearby stream and carefully searched until he caught a family of small bullfrogs. After cleaning them, he roasted them in the stove. After 50 minutes, he took them out, and they tasted delicious. Now the construction of the entire shelter was officially completed. It seemed that Defa's wilderness life was becoming more and more promising.